The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good morning, excuse me. So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ed Koza, and we are going to be walking through OSG's perspective on consumer jobs and how we use consumer jobs and our proprietary tools to discover innovation and to work with our clients. So thanks again for joining us. So very briefly, OSG, our focus here, for those of you who don't know who we are, we've been around for about 10 years. We have offices around the world. We're based in Newtown, which is just outside of Philadelphia, offices in the UK and APAC as well. Lots of strong academic roots on our team. And we focus on several key verticals, including CPG, which has a broad definition, as well as retail, life sciences, energy, and finance. So just very briefly. So here at OSG, when we think about innovation, it's really important to share our perspective on innovation. So innovation is not serendipitous. It happens with intent and for very specific reasons. And we look at innovation needing to be continuous. That means there's a continuous learning journey. It's not dipping in and out, but rather, how do you tap into trends? How do you tap into what's happening in the external world, as well as really understanding your customer so that you can get to that continuous innovation flow? It also requires a deep understanding of the jobs to be done. And we're going to talk a little bit about today exactly about the jobs theory and what that means and how that applies to innovation. We'll also be sharing a brief case study on how we've used that specifically within the CPG world to understand health and healthy alternatives. And then finally, we do believe that innovation comes from the use of state-of-the-art analytics to spot those trends, and really requires, in addition to just spotting those trends, need to complement it and really need to drive it with a superior interpretation of the motivations behind that human behavior. It's really important. One without the other is often going to be disappointing and leave your innovation and your pipeline short. So let's talk a little bit about jobs to be done. The whole theory of jobs to be done is that consumers hire a product, customers hire a product to do a job for them, and often customers are looking to hire a product, to hire something to do multiple jobs. One product can fulfill multiple jobs, and different jobs may exist during the customer's day, during their work week, during their work at a hospital, etc. But if you think about a milkshake, and there was recently a lot of write-up that was shared with this. Think about hiring a milkshake. So traditionally, you would say a milkshake may be hired as a special treat for your kids. Maybe they got a good grade. Maybe they, whatever they may have done, scored a goal in a soccer game, and so it becomes a reward. It's also, of course, another job you would hire a milkshake to do would be as a dessert after a meal. So just something sweet, and even maybe a midday snack, right? So you can see different jobs. But think about another job, and this was actually discovered recently, and took the team to a completely different way to think about milkshakes and how to improve and innovation opportunities around a milkshake. The idea that the analytics this was done, was written up, and it was done a little while ago. They discovered that the milkshake sales were up during the morning commute. That they saw a lot of folks buying those milkshakes, and in fact, milkshake consumption was during that morning commute time was actually higher in some of the more densely populated areas than others. So they thought that was interesting, and they had some hypotheses as to what was going on, what could possibly be happening there. Were people just having a sweet craving early in the morning, or even coming off of a rough night one way or another, and stopping to get a milkshake? But as they dove into it and started to understand the job that the milkshake was being hired to do during that morning commute, what they realized is that these commuters were looking for something that would fill them up, that would hold them off till lunch. And the milkshake, as they talked to these customers, to these consumers, was deemed as had a junky component to it, or less healthy component, but it also had the health component, a little bit of a health component, because it was dairy and because it had the calorie content. So it was something that would hold them over until lunchtime. But just importantly, there was an emotional component to the job that they were hiring. It was to help them to get over the boredom of their commute. So they often found that it was a longer commute, and that the milkshake would last through the commute. So it was filling them up, but also giving them something to do. So you think about other products they could have hired that to do this job. So maybe it's a granola bar, but a granola bar, and if you're in your car, it's messy, and it's a couple bites and it's gone. Or they even could have hired, that maybe they could have hired a piece of fruit. But think about how a piece of fruit during your commute, how you need multiple hands and so on. So this milkshake in this job was fulfilling something very specific. So the article goes on to talk about how that led to some really different ways to think about innovation beyond, even flavors that might work better in the morning. Do you put some chunks of fruit in there and so on? So it all came back by stepping back from the analytics, asking some questions, using this customer jobs framework, and then getting back into it. So we're going to use that thought process today as we continue on through our webinar. So at OSG, we have a 6-7 step process that we look to execute against, that really provides a continuous stream to go back to our beliefs on innovation, that innovation is continuous and it's not serendipitous. Right? So we start by partnering with our client, whoever that, we want to start to understand that customer, the customer journey. Where do they generate awareness? What are the considerations? What's the competitive set? What's the role of reviews? Who are the key opinion leaders? Who are the decision makers, et cetera? We move then in this process, the next step becomes our customer immersions. That's where we're going to sit down. We're going to talk to the customers, different types of customers. We want to identify the jobs, outcomes, constraints, and benefits that they're dealing with. By going at it in this framework, what are those jobs that you need to get done to make yourself successful and that a product that you're hiring that product to do? What outcomes or benefits are you looking for? Constraints in order to get to those jobs. So a lot of times you'll find that customers are using workarounds, that they don't even realize maybe that the product's not fully satisfying what they need to do, but they've worked in something to solve the problem, and it's a little secret that they do just to improve workflow or to get around it, and then finally it benefits. Remember that any single product can fulfill multiple jobs and can deliver against multiple benefits. And then then we get into the behavioral analytics side of it, and that's where we apply AceMap, which is OSG's proprietary methodology to really understand what are the key choice drivers and what trade-offs do customers make as they're thinking about these jobs to be done. Then we use that same AceMap exercise to understand where are the gaps in the marketplace, in these jobs where needs are not currently met, and that quickly becomes the opportunity. I'm going to illustrate that for you in the next slide or so here. Then because of the way we execute this, we can size that opportunity. We can look at what's the impact of changing some features, what's the impact of going to different levels, delivering a benefit against a different level, and really understand what's the preference for the model preference for that, as well as the willingness to pay, the price, and so on. Then we can deploy CAVY. CAVY is another proprietary tool that OSG offers. It's our big data analytics platform that really brings in structured and unstructured data, and from multiple sources, maybe from sales, it can be from social media. I'm going to show that in a little bit more detail. And then we have this kind of continuing innovation feed that we get into. So let's talk briefly about a case study. So our client was a leading vegetable brand, and they really wanted to understand how they could grow their business. They were beginning to understand that there were some trends in the marketplace. They were starting to hear these signals, wanting to understand how large those signals really were, how much they should be paying attention to them. They were also looking at a category where they weren't seeing the growth that they wanted. And because their line of products was really kind of positioned in a specific area, they weren't capturing a lot of the meal occasions and jobs that consumers in this case were hiring fruits, vegetables, produce to be done. So they approached us, and we worked really closely with a cross-functional team from this client, had multiple workshops, multiple phases to the work, and kind of understood what their hypotheses were about the landscape in terms of who they were competing against, what jobs and what benefits different products were fulfilling. And we were talking about this category broadly. So we looked at fresh produce and vegetables, we looked at frozen fruits and vegetables, and even canned goods to see how they filled in, and what jobs and benefits they fulfilled. Based on our work, we discovered we were able to find 4 key dimensions, which I'll show you on the next page, and 11 specific jobs that the consumer was looking to do around mealtime. We certainly saw this move towards health and wellness, and there was a very distinct segment that was leading this. So by understanding the needs and the unmet needs of this very specific segment of consumers who was really looking for health and wellness, we were able to identify the opportunity, size that opportunity, and also to look at new product opportunities. And then finally, this idea, another key insight that came out of this is the importance of steamable. This idea of steamable had benefits that laddered up to health and wellness, that really could, by talking and focusing on steam, and that steam was really activating the freshness of these frozen vegetables, it changed the consumer mindset. So coming out of this work, we were able to really define a clear understanding, a prioritization of jobs. Within the different jobs, and again, this was 11 different jobs, within those jobs, what was the prioritization of benefits overall, but by specific customer or consumer segments? We were able to identify gaps, size those ideas, and set pricing expectations. So as you take a look at the category landscape here, so of course, data and now values and things have been changed here, using this as an example. But as I mentioned, we found 11 different clusters of benefits or jobs to be done, if you will. And the category was set up by kind of this along the continuum of natural goodness versus something special. Think about side dishes. And then also another piece of the framework was looking at the healthy origins versus just the basics. So we were able through correspondence analysis and multiple consumer sorts, we're really able to paint a picture of the category landscape, map onto this where the client's products played, where competitive products played, and also to identify those gaps in the marketplace. If you take a look at the right-hand side of what I'm showing as an example, we were able to also look at specific segments of consumers. So within a need, so in this one, we happen to be looking at the green bubble over here in the left-hand corner that's healthy and natural, looking at this idea of what are the different benefits within this bundle that are important, and how does their importance differ by the specific consumer segments, so that you could that would address your innovation, how you would go after this, and even what you would focus on in communicating. If you wanted to bring someone who's frozen averse into the category, how would you address them versus those who are already committed to the category, but you want to bring them into this benefit bundle or job. Resulting from this, there was several lines of products introduced into the market. So you see this idea of superfood blends, so combining grains and vegetables to really tap into that health and wellness trend. This idea of, kind of the natural grains, the energy, the protein, and the naturalness that you get in it. And then also this idea, I talked about the big insight of steam unlocking the power of frozen vegetables and bringing them closer to frozen vegetables, you can see that. So not only that, but they're also, you see organic featured prominently along with non-GMO, so not genetically modified and so on. So started to bring this together, and so as you look at the client's business, I know that the client's experiencing growth on this, and really has had very strong both channel reaction as well as consumer uptake around this product. So AceMap. Let me talk a little bit about AceMap. It's our special sauce. It's very unique. It's proprietary to OSG, and it was developed at Stanford. It's been tested and evaluated. It's actually shown to have better predictive accuracy, and it has a lot more benefits. It's consumer friendly, so respondent friendly. As we use this again across our verticals, so CPG, in retail, with our life sciences practices, as well as energy and so on. It goes nicely across these different verticals, and also for your different respondent types. It works as well with patients as it does with the HCPs. So we've really found a lot of strength and a lot of benefits to using this. It's a very simple process. So we work with you. We'll develop these lists of benefits, these potential drivers. And we also, of course, as we workshop this, we look to trend data, we look to our own experience and work with you in consultation. Basically 4 steps to the exercise. So as an example, let's say we have 45 choice drivers that we want to test. First thing we do is we ask the respondent to sort them into 3 buckets. The first bucket is those drivers that are most important to them. Then there's the bucket that's the second most important, and then the least. So now you have 3 buckets. We come back within each bucket. We then ask them to rank order within that bucket, and then we go into the algorithm that really changes individual by individual. So each respondent is going to have a different algorithm for step 3, where we set up pairs and we set off these comparisons and trade-offs so that they really have to trade off. So, you know, in a typical piece of research, you're not going to see a lot of discrimination between the drivers, the benefits that you test. But by forcing this trade-off and changing this exercise, depending on what each individual respondent has told us, we can really create that discrimination and pull that apart. The other benefit is this lets us work with smaller sample sizes than you can do with other types of trade-off, be it attribute direct importance, or other conjoint methodologies. So there's a lot of power in this. In the final step, and if we have different ways to deliver these drivers, so think about a feature, and we could, might be able to reduce the calorie count by 5%, 10%, 15%. In step 4, we can actually evaluate the desirability of those, so that as we go into the model and the simulation, we're able to come back and say, how much of an impact are these different levels of delivering a benefit going to give you, and what are your customers willing to pay? There's a lot of power here. So again, it's unique to OSG. It's highly accurate, easy, respondent friendly, and I think importantly, it really gives you the power of accuracy even with smaller sample sizes, so you can look at small groups. So you can manage your costs, your overall research budget, and still get those benefits that you need to evaluate. And so that kind of becomes our middle step as we really understand what's important, what are those choice drivers. And you see your output in terms of starting to pull this apart. You can use this for messaging, but for innovation, it very quickly lets you know where to focus. And what I've seen, so I've been here at OSG a couple of years. I spent most of my career on the corporate side, leading various brand insights teams. And what you see in OSG's methodology, and one of the reasons I looked into joining the team to begin with, was the magic of AceMap and how it really does pull apart the choice drivers. And you often see a different answer, or you get a less obvious answer than with other methodologies. So again, if you think about jobs to be done, and you think about, for instance, using that frozen vegetable, because you can look at small small samples, and your context can be set up. So for instance, we can set up, thinking about the context of a busy workday meal, what's most important to you? What's the value of these different choice drivers? Each of us, as you think about meal occasions during the week, we're going to have these different types of jobs or occasions, right? So a regular family meal, and think about a celebration meal with a loved one. Maybe it's an anniversary or celebrating a promotion. And by setting the context of those occasions, understanding the jobs that need to be done in there, you can very quickly, with the power of AceMap, get to that distinction. This is the other magic. This is where we're able to identify unmet needs in the marketplace. So remember, as I talked about AceMap and what the pairs that are created at the individual, the algorithm creates that at the individual level. We also, so after they do the AceMap exercise, we know what's most important to that respondent real time in the midst of the survey, in the midst of the interview. We can then take those 10, 15, even 20 choice drivers that are most important to this individual respondent, and that's what we're going to have them rate, and rate the performance of any of your brand, of your product, as well as other brands and products in the category. So instead of going through that long list, creating the respondent fatigue that goes along with rating performance across multiple benefits and across multiple brands, we're only asking our respondents to rate the performance of the brands in the category based on what they already told us what was important. So again, that gives us a lot more power. What that results in is our opportunity map. So if you take a look at this opportunity map, mapped along the vertical axis is your driver score. So what's more and less important. So things above the line are more important to your customer, and those below the line are those things that are less important. So that's great to know. But now how well are the needs met in the category as it exists today? This is going to be how you can really identify those innovation opportunities. So where are there needs that are met today? So tasting homemade, for instance, in this example, and again, this is mocked up, but tasting homemade, extremely important, and you can see this is a need that's met in the category. And again, we asked about specific occasion jobs to be done. Where we love to focus on and where there's a lot of magic is in this right-hand quadrant. So this is important, yet the needs are not being met by products and solutions in the marketplace today. So this starts to give you ideas and direction on where to focus your innovation. The other area that we like to focus in, things that maybe are less important today, but still unmet. So these are market development areas. We often see innovations start in the lower blue, in this lower quadrant. As the category evolves, as it grows, you often see a lot of the benefits and drivers in this quadrant move up to the green. They become more important, and then ultimately, as brands and manufacturers start to deliver against those needs, you start to see that to move over. So you see this continuous cycle that occurs over many years, depending on the category, be it healthcare, be it consumer, and so on. All right. So as I mentioned in our case study, because we feed this all into a simulator, we're able to really prioritize and evaluate the impact of making changes to specific drivers, and even to specific levels of ways of delivering against those benefits. And we also very often, it's rare that we don't, in the simulator, include the willingness to pay. So then you can really see where are you going to be able to generate a premium, where's the biggest opportunity, what's nice to have, what's not going to move the needle. And then this is where CAVY comes in. And so CAVY is our big data analytics platform. It's how we get at continuous innovations. Because we're looking at structured and unstructured data, we have access to social media listening, we have access to the secondary data. So looking for the engine, the analytics engine is going to go into this and look for strings and consistencies and pull out those trends, pull out those signals that are popping out, so you can start to look for ideas for more innovation. That can then be fed back into the ACE map. So you kind of have this continuous process. What's the buzz in the marketplace? Is that just a little bit of buzz from a few folks, or is that something that's actually coming out from many, that you're hearing from many? Feed it into the ACE map, understand who's most driven by it, how to deliver it, and that's how we get a continuous innovation. So a little bit more on CAVY. It's about advanced analytics, real-time monitoring. It automates data aggregation, and the unstructured data that you can include in there includes email, text interactions, videos, online transactions. So all the social media, we can also build a panel, and we've built a panel with our customers. So they give us permission to have access to their mobile phones, which then gives us access to Facebook, to Instagram, Snapchat, etc. We can take a look at all of that and feed that into CAVY, so we really start to understand what are those conversation threads, what's starting to happen out there in the marketplace. And again, we do this, of course, only with full permission on the panels that we provide, but there's a lot of power in that. So this kind of just illustrates. Think about if you're customer and you want to. It's traditionally been very difficult to intercept a customer at shelf. So if they're buying, they're on a shopping trip, we can actually, because we can have ACE map on a mobile phone, but we also have access with permission to their social media and to the various apps on their phone. We can capture that, feed that in, ask them that, that you're at shelf, what aisle were you in, what other areas were you considering, capture a picture of it. The magic of this, the beauty of this is untapped, and would love to have the chance to talk with those of you on the phone in a lot more detail about the possibilities here. And so CAVY, it's looking at market signals that any one of us and just traditional social media is not able to do. It brings in text analysis, speech analysis, facial images. So if someone's creating a video, if they're talking about your category, talking about your brand, sharing something with their friends, the analytics on this lets you actually understand what kind of mood are they in, and so on. There's a lot of power here. And then ultimately, which we've been doing more and more, is creating these dashboards. So what's the noise in the marketplace? What signals are we picking up? Where are those signals coming from? What part of the world? How compelling is it? We can actually take a look at those signals, feed it into some models, start to tell you what's the potential impact. So you really start to highlight what are those areas you need to be paying attention to go dive deeper into. So there's a lot that can be done here. So I know we're getting close to the end here as we're coming right up on our 30 minutes. There's so much to talk about here. Would love to be able to share with each of you in much more detail. But this idea of innovation, really focusing on the job to be done, applying both the proprietary tools of ACE map and CAVY, have been so successful at uncovering and evaluating new innovation for many of our clients. Would love to be able to talk to you about that. So in terms of, you'll see on here the contacts to get in touch with us. Please feel free to reach out. You'll also see our website there in the bottom left-hand corner. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you more. I think this is so incredibly exciting, and hopefully this just gave you a little bit of a taste on how you can really empower your innovation process and take it to a different level. So thank you for joining today.